Morning everyone, Sunday morning. Got me a nice delicious coffee and another saw. Still MS461. What do we got here? Date of manufacture 10/15. So this is a 2015, manufactured in October. So this is a pretty new saw. Got some dings right here. Case is in pretty nice shape. Handle's got most of the paint on it. Side cover's got some damage. Not too bad though. I bought this saw at an auction. Here's what's left of it. Pretty happy though. Everything is in this bag. So this saw is ripped apart. It was at an auction. So I figured I'd put a bid on it. So I got my wife to bid the other day, and we ended up getting this saw. Cool. It's a local government saw. That's actually where all these came from. Those are all government 576s. Well, I guess they switched to Stihl from Husqvarna. So what I'm going to do on this saw, I'm going to do a failure analysis. Don't know what's wrong with the saw. It's ripped apart. It was obviously parked for a reason. So I just kind of mocked it up so that you guys can see what it is. It's pretty much torn down. So I'll take a look at it and let's go through it together, and we could figure out why this saw was parked and then decide whether it's worth rebuilding or whether it's just a part saw. So I'm going to pause it. I'm going to take all the covers off, and let's start with the top end. Okay. Got the saw taken apart. So we have a factory Stihl top end. Basically, I'm just making this video for those of you that want to get into this hobby, but you're like, how can you buy a blown up saw and not worry that it's no good? Well, you don't really know if it's good until you do this. So don't pay too much for blown up saws unless you need the parts, or you know something that the other people bidding on it don't know, or whether you're, a lot of times I don't buy saws at auction because you never know, right? So my light turned off. Hold on here. Well, that cylinder looks okay. Looks like somebody's deglazed it. I know the shop that worked on this. I deal with them. They're a local shop. They're pretty good. So if they parked this, it was for a reason. The cylinder has been deglazed. I don't feel any of that discoloration with my finger. So that's not scoring. That's probably still slight transfer on the exhaust side. What about on the intake side? So this saw was probably run a little bit lean at one time or another, but it actually looks pretty good. Let's have a look at the piston. I've not cleaned any of this. This piston looks very nice. Like, do you see, there you go. See that line at the bottom? There's like a discoloration. Bottom of the piston skirt. So to me, just by looking at this piston has been doing this in the bore. Quick and dirty way to check that. Now, you are going to have a little bit of slop in this cylinder, but make sure it's the right way. This way. Put it in there. Look at how much of a gap there is in there. Now, to rule out it being the cylinder, because they will wear sometimes, I've seen it where they wear on the front and the back, put it in sideways and just do the same thing. Well, it's got the same slap both ways. So right there, although this piston looks good, and you'd think, oh, I'll just put new rings in it, this piston's no good. It looks fine. It doesn't look like anybody's cleaned it, but it's trash. Rings look okay. I did put them in the bore. They have very little gap. I'm not even going to attempt to do that on camera, but when I put them in the bore, the gap is like almost nil. So this saw has very, very little time on it, which is good, but then you think, why is it blown up? Plastic flywheel. I guess that's one way they get their weight that they publish. Whether this saw is that weight, I'm not sure, but 14.8 pounds, 6 horsepower. Kind of why I bought this. This is probably going to be a really good falling saw. Sounds like she should have the power. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to attempt to move this up and down. No movement, no play on the flywheel side, so that tells me the bearing's probably okay. And when I say probably, sometimes they're trashed and you don't know till you pull them apart. So let's see if we can get this in here. Oh, let's pull the handle off. Hold on. It's not attached. There we go. Okay, move you under here. No, that's not going to work. There we go. Here, I'll stick my fingers. Check the rod for up and down play. None. Whew. That's good, because I'm sure this crankshaft is not cheap. Sometimes you'll feel a little play, but the rod's not actually in the middle of the bearing, right? That's normal. Again, I'm just making this video. Those of you that work on saws know all this stuff, but if we can help new people. I remember I used to have a lot of questions when I started this, so. Okay. First thing I noticed when I pulled this saw out of the box, oil pump's taken off, which leads me to believe what's wrong with this saw. Let's see if I can get you in here. Okay, watch that. See it moving? Watch the circlip. But yet, no movement on the outside of the bearing. The movement is all on the inside. So, right there, typical failure, see it a lot. PTO side bearing is toast. Case looks okay. Very common. Unfortunately, that, in my opinion, that shouldn't be on this saw. This saw is not that old. The bottom end's got some trash in it from sitting. Look how clean this saw is. Look how clean the bottom end is. So this is a matter of, in my opinion, I might be wrong, but this is one of those, this saw was run hard and put away wet. I know that for a fact. I don't even have to guess on this one. Look at this bar. Okay? This bar's been overheated to the point, look at the chips coming off of here. And a huge lip. So, I've seen this many times. This bar, or this chain, was run probably dull and over tight. Just thinking I'm going to go even a step further and explain why a tight chain does what it does, or a dull chain. So think about it in these terms. This is how I think about it. Your chain is dull or over tightened. That heats up the bar. Now when you overheat a bar, all this heat builds up. That's when you get chips and you roll the edge over. That chain gets super hot. That heat is then transferred to the clutch. The clutch gets warm. The clutch is attached to the crankshaft. The crankshaft gets warm. The bearing gets super warm. And when that bearing's super warm and you have a dull chain, what happens? The operator leans on the saw because he wants to make it cut. So you get all that going on, and what ends up happening? One of two things. It either gets so hot that you melt the crank seal, or it gets so hot that you blow the bearing up, because the bearing, once it gets heated, all that heat gets transferred to the crankcase, and then the hotter the crankcase is, the leaner the saw is going to get. If the saw is an auto tune, which this is not, or an M-tronic, you can tell I'm a Husky guy. So if this saw was set even slightly rich under normal operating conditions, under this condition with a hot crankshaft and a hot crankcase, it's going to get leaner and leaner and leaner, which then takes out the top end. In this case, it took out the bearing. I guarantee it took out the bearing and then the seal let go, and that's why the top end isn't chewed up real bad, because this failed probably like very quickly, and then the saw just wouldn't start. They parked it, they took it in, this bearing's toast. It's probably good that the seal failed, because if the seal didn't fail, this bearing may have come apart. It would have ended up going through the transfers onto the top, and then this cylinder would be toast. So that's failure analysis in a nutshell. The more you work on saws, the more you can pretty much, you know, sometimes you don't know, but the minute I saw this taken apart, I was like, yep. I still, though, got to be diligent and go through it, because this thing's going to cost some money to repair. So keep your chains sharp, don't over tighten them, dress your bars. This bar has a huge lip on it, and that lip ends up being wider than the cut, and then it creates friction as you're going through the cut. You can have the sharpest chain in the world, but if you got a bar like that, it ain't going to cut. So I wanted to further the discussion so that it's maybe a little bit more clear. So, and I see a lot of this PTO side bearing failures are super common. It doesn't have to be that way. I mean, they are going to fail over time. It's a bearing, it's a wearing part, but this type of failure is super common, and it doesn't need to be, because if you have a sharp chain, you don't lean on the saw, your chain is tightened properly, your clutch will never get warm. I should pull the clutch out and look at it. Give me 1 second, I'm going to dig her out. There you go. I've never looked at this clutch. See the bluing? This clutch got warm. See the bluing? So when this gets warm, that gets warm. And when that gets warm, this whole thing gets warm. And then she goes boom. So there you go. As always, thanks for watching. That's failure analysis in a nutshell. I'm going to try and do more videos like this as I get more saws in that don't run. I got a couple more here that I've bought complete but not running. Let's keep doing this, and you know, we can all learn together. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Take her easy.